Zariah Bell wasn't supposed to be in Chicago until Friday, but the pitch wrapped early. The client in New York signed on faster than expected, and the team decided to celebrate without her. She didn't mind. She'd been on the road for 12 days. Her body was tired. Her heart was worse. And her husband? She hadn't seen him awake since last Monday. She booked the next flight. Didn't call. Didn't text. Let's see if he misses me, she thought, as the rideshare pulled up to the private entrance of the Halstead residences. Zariah's fingers tightened around the strap of her carry-on. The glass elevator took her to the top floor, 54 stories up. She could already imagine Corbin's surprised face. Maybe guilt. But more than anything, she missed the version of him who used to wrap her in his arms like he didn't want morning to come. The doors slid open. No security. No personal assistant hovering. No text that said, "Running late." Just quiet. Zariah stepped inside their penthouse slowly. The marble floor gleamed under the dim glow of recessed lighting. Her heels echoed in the silence, past the custom dining table, past the wall of wine bottles. The lights from the Chicago skyline painted shadows on the walls. She set her bag down, adjusted her coat, and then she heard it. A laugh, a woman's laugh. Soft, intimate, familiar. Zariah froze. That voice. She couldn't place it yet, but her chest tightened as she walked toward the hallway leading to Corbin's study. The door was slightly ajar. Light spilled out. Laughter again. Zariah reached for the handle and nudged it open. There he was. Corbin Dane, her husband. The billionaire real estate developer. Sleeves rolled up. Tie loose. Whiskey glass in hand. And next to him, perched far too comfortably on the arm of the chair, a mirror. His personal assistant, in a fitted blouse, glossy lips, laughing like they shared a secret. She was touching him. Nothing scandalous, nothing obvious, but too close, too comfortable. Zariah didn't say a word for a few seconds. She just watched. Corbin's eyes lifted first. They widened. Amira turned, and her lips parted like she'd just swallowed the air in the room. Zariah stepped forward, voice low, steady. Guess I should have called first. The room dropped into a vacuum. Corbin stood as if someone had slapped him. Z, I didn't know you were back tonight. You weren't supposed to, she said. Zariah's eyes flicked to Amira, then back to her husband. Corbin walked toward her, but she raised her hand, not dramatically. Just a quiet signal. I'm tired, she said, and then she walked past them both. No questions, no screams, no drama. She moved like someone who'd already seen enough. Straight down the hall, into the guest bedroom. She closed the door behind her, slid the lock, and pressed her back against it. Her heart pounded, her throat burned. She didn't cry. She sat on the edge of the bed, took off her heels slowly, and whispered to no one, "You better not lie to me tomorrow." The next morning, the house was quieter than usual. Even the city noise felt muted through the soundproof windows. Zariah sat at the kitchen island, staring into her coffee. She hadn't slept. Not really. Maybe 20 minutes, eyes half closed, listening for footsteps that never came. Corbin stepped in. No suit today, just sweats and a t-shirt. He looked human, almost nervous. I didn't cheat on you, he said, skipping good morning. Zariah didn't look up. She took a slow sip, placed the cup down gently. But you entertained the idea. That's worse. Corbin stood there, arms at his side. She dropped off files, that's all. She asked if I wanted to talk through one of the investment decks. I said yes. We had a drink while we went over it. That's all it was. And the laugh? Zariah asked. The way she touched your arm? He didn't answer. Her scent is still in the hallway, she added. Smells like jasmine and competition. Corbin's jaw tightened. I didn't invite her to flirt. I didn't flirt back. You didn't stop her either. Zariah pushed her cup aside. I'll be gone by noon. Corbin's eyes flared. Gone? Don't worry, I'm not leaving you. I'm leaving this. For now. She stood, walked toward her suitcase. He followed. Z, don't do this. She turned, face still calm. If I stay right now, I'll say things that can't be unsaid. And you'll say things you'll regret. We both know you avoid what makes you uncomfortable. He blinked, said nothing. That woman thought she had a place in our home. She didn't get that impression on her own. Zariah walked past him, back straight, chin lifted. By 1 p.m., she was at her sister Nyla's place in Bronzeville. Small house, warm furniture, real food smells, no floor-to-ceiling glass walls, just comfort. Nyla opened the door and didn't ask a single question. Just pulled her into a hug and said, "Your room's ready." Zariah didn't talk that night. Nyla didn't press. They watched an old movie and fell asleep on opposite sides of the couch. The next day, Zariah finally spoke. "I don't know what's worse," she said, eyes on the window. That he let her into our home, or that I believed he wouldn't. Nyla reached over, touched her sister's hand. "You're not the type of woman men forget how to treat." Zariah let the silence sit. "He's either with you all the way, or he needs to watch you walk," Nyla said. That line sat heavy. Zariah thought about who she was before the penthouse. Before Corbin. The girl who built a firm out of nothing. Who paid off her mother's mortgage. Who walked into boardrooms full of suits and came out with contracts. Corbin didn't meet her on vacation. He met her in battle, in business, and maybe he'd forgotten who he married. Zariah sat in Nyla's guest room with her laptop open, but her hands resting still. The screen showed the draft of a proposal she'd meant to review last night. A 6-figure branding deal. It should have made her excited. Instead, all she saw were the words campaign alignment, and her mind drifted back to the last time Corbin made her feel seen. It was almost a year ago. They met in a conference room downtown, where Corbin was scheduled to meet with 3 branding agencies. His team had narrowed it down, but he wasn't impressed. Zariah wasn't even supposed to be there. She was stepping in for a senior strategist who caught the flu. But the moment she stood and introduced herself, Corbin's attention locked in. She didn't smile much. She didn't flatter. She delivered. "Mr. Dane," she said, "your buildings are stunning, but your branding says nothing about the people who live in them. If you want loyalty, you don't sell marble floors. You sell peace of mind." He blinked. Then he smiled. Zariah didn't win the contract just because she was good. She won it because she didn't flinch under his gaze. Because she challenged him. They met for lunch 2 weeks later. It wasn't a date. Not officially. But when he asked what kind of man would be worth her time, she answered without blinking. One who doesn't need to be reminded twice that I'm not replaceable. That woman, the one who said that, she'd gone quiet somewhere along the way. Zariah clicked the laptop shut. Back in the city, Corbin sat in his home office, staring at a photo. It was from a gala 9 months ago. Zariah, in a backless emerald gown. His hand on her waist. They weren't posing. They were caught mid-laugh. She had whispered something sarcastic to him right before the camera flash. He didn't even remember what the joke was. What he remembered was the way she made him feel. Level. Grounded. Not impressed. Not admired. Safe. But over time, work began eating at the small moments. He brought his phone to dinner. He missed her birthday dinner to close a deal in Dubai. He forgot how to check in unless something was wrong. And now, for the first time since they got married, he was afraid he couldn't fix it. Corbin picked up his phone and hovered over her name. He didn't call. Zariah scrolled through old messages between her and Corbin. Her fingers paused on one. From Corbin 7 months ago, "Land the client, baby. I'm proud of you. Let's celebrate tomorrow. Just you and me. No phones, no staff." He had made reservations at an art gallery dinner. Private space. Live jazz. Red roses waiting on the table. He had looked at her that night, like she was the only thing that made sense. She clicked on another message. From Corbin, 2 months ago. "Sorry I missed your call. The London team had a fire to put out. I'll text when I'm done. He never texted. And she never brought it up. By the time the sun dipped behind the skyline, Corbin parked outside Nyla's house and turned the ignition off. He didn't get out. He didn't even touch his phone. He just sat there, still in a button-up from an earlier meeting, elbows on the steering wheel, staring at the porch like it might answer for him. Nyla saw him first. She called Zariah from the kitchen. "Your man's out front. Hasn't moved." Zariah didn't rush. She didn't check her hair or change out of her sweats. She opened the front door slowly and stepped outside. He stepped out of the car at the same time. They stared at each other. 5 long seconds. She folded her arms. He kept his hands visible. "I never touched her, Zariah," Corbin said. She nodded once. "But you created space for her to think she could touch you." His throat moved, but no sound came out. "I don't know what version of me you thought would never show up," she added, "but the woman you married shows up. She doesn't need permission to exist." "I know," he said quietly. She took one step down the porch. His eyes looked tired, more than tired, guilty and real. "I've built empires," he said. "I've bought skyscrapers. I've turned swampland into luxury neighborhoods, but I don't know how to handle a woman who sees all of me and doesn't flinch." Zariah tilted her head slightly. "You don't need to know how, Corbin. You need to want to learn." She turned to go back inside. "Z." She paused. His voice was softer. "Please, don't give up on me." She didn't face him. "Then stop giving me reasons to consider it." Later that night, back in the guest room, Zariah exhaled. For the first time in 3 days, her body relaxed. She didn't have answers yet, but at least now he wasn't hiding. Have you ever been in a relationship where silence hurt more than the truth? Tell me in the comments. Your story might help someone else. Like, comment, share, subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories for more real-life lessons in love and loyalty. Zariah walked into her office early Monday morning. She wasn't dressed to impress. No power heels, no statement earrings, just a soft tan sweater, black slacks and braided back hair that said, "I don't need permission to exist today." Her assistant, Naomi, blinked as she entered. "You're here?" she asked, blinking. "You weren't supposed to be back till Friday." Zariah paused in the doorway. Plans change. Naomi opened her mouth to ask more but didn't. Zariah appreciated that. She walked to her desk, opened her MacBook, and scrolled through the Monday client queue. 2 pitches were pending, 1 contract needed redlining, and there were 3 client updates waiting for her final approval. She clicked none of them. Her fingers hovered. Her eyes wandered. She hadn't told Naomi about Corbin, not about the study, not about Amira, not about the 3 days she spent on her sister's couch rethinking what love looked like in her life. Not yet, but it followed her. The weight. It clung to her shoulders like an invisible coat, like the scent of jasmine she couldn't wash out. Corbin woke up to silence. No Zariah, no coffee brewing. No hum of the living room TV playing the morning news she always watched muted. Just him, in bed alone, staring at the ceiling. He had messaged her the night before. "I meant what I said. I'll do the work." She hadn't replied. He reached for his phone again, typed, deleted, typed again, then stopped. Instead, he walked into the kitchen and poured himself coffee she hadn't made. Even Amira's contact stared at him from his favorites. He didn't dare press it, didn't need to. She'd overstepped. He let her, and Zariah saw what she needed to see. That wasn't a betrayal by accident. That was emotional laziness. And for a woman like Zariah, that was enough. He pulled out his phone again and searched for a therapist. Zariah was in the middle of signing a new client proposal when her phone vibrated. She saw his name. Her hand paused over the screen. Corbin Dane. She didn't answer. She let it ring. But her eyes stayed on his name long after the screen dimmed. She finished the proposal. She sent it. She went on with her day. But That name stayed in the back of her mind like a whisper that wouldn't fade. Later that evening, back at Nyla's place, she sat on the couch with a blanket over her knees and a bowl of pasta in hand. Nyla walked in, took one look, and smirked. That look says he called. Zoraya didn't look up, twice, and I didn't answer. Nyla sat beside her. Good. Zoraya took a bite, chewed, slowly. Then, after a pause, she spoke. I don't know if I want him to stop calling or never call again. Nyla didn't speak at first, just watched her sister's face. I think, she said, you're still deciding what kind of pain you're willing to live with. Zoraya nodded slowly. I just didn't think we'd be here. Not this early. 1 year in, Nyla said, and already testing vows nobody said out loud. Zoraya chuckled softly, but it faded quick. She looked down at her half-empty bowl. I didn't marry him for money, she whispered. I know. I married him because he made me feel like the world couldn't touch me when he held me. Her throat tightened. Now I'm not even sure he notices when I walk away. Nyla leaned over, rested her head on Zoraya's shoulder. He noticed Z. That man's in his car for 3 hours the other night just to say he doesn't know how to love you right. That's not nothing. Zoraya swallowed the lump in her throat. But is it enough? Meanwhile, Corbin sat in his own therapy session. An older black man in his late 50s, clean voice, glasses perched low, listened as Corbin explained everything. From his childhood to Zoraya, to Amira, to that frozen moment in the study. I didn't touch her, Corbin said. I didn't plan it. I didn't mean for it to look that way. The therapist, Mr. Callan, nodded once. And yet, he said, you set the table. She just happened to bring the wine. Corbin looked up. You created the environment, Mr. Callan continued. Even if you didn't have the intent, you allowed the context. Corbin leaned back. So what now? You start with truth, then you add presence. And if she's still open to it, consistency. Corbin blinked. Truth, presence, consistency, Mr. Callan repeated. You can't control if she stays, but you can decide the kind of man she walks away from, or toward. That night, Zoraya called him. Corbin picked up on the first ring. You're in therapy? She asked. He didn't flinch. Yes. She didn't reply at first. And you fired Amira? She added. I didn't fire her, he said calmly. I let her go, professionally, respectfully, but permanently. Zoraya breathed in slow. You told her why? Yes. I told her that nothing inappropriate happened, but the trust in my home, with my wife, matters more than efficiency. She was quiet. He continued. I didn't ask you to come home yet. I just want you to know what I'm doing with the time. Zoraya nodded to herself. That's all for now, she said. Good night, Corbin. Good night, Z. She hung up. But for the first time since Friday night, she slept without waking. Tuesday came with no announcements, no grand gestures, no roses, no email begging her to come home. But by 9 a.m., a small envelope was hand-delivered to Zoraya's office. Naomi brought it in, eyes wide. No courier, just a driver. Said it was from Mr. Dane. Zoraya took it without a word. Inside was a single sheet of high-grade stationery. Zoraya, I booked a session with Mr. Callan every Tuesday and Thursday. Not for us. For me. Because I realized the man I was becoming would eventually lose the woman I love. If you ever want to join me, you're welcome. If not, I'll keep going anyway. Corbin. Zoraya stared at the paper, then folded it carefully and tucked it into her bag. She didn't call him. She didn't text. But something small shifted in her chest. Not forgiveness, not yet. But awareness. He wasn't hiding behind status or silence. He was meeting himself at the edge. Back at the penthouse, Corbin was in his home office, alone this time. He'd cleared the study, removed the whiskey decanter, replaced the second armchair with 2 therapy stools he bought online. The space looked different now. less like a lounge, more like a space to grow. He sat with his laptop open, reading a PDF Mr. Callan had emailed. Emotional intimacy and the fear of exposure. It felt like being undressed on a public stage. But it was time. Time to unlearn. Time to show up. At Nyla's, Zariah was packing. Not everything. Just a few outfits. Her good laptop. A few client folders. Nyla leaned against the doorway. "You going home?" Zariah shook her head. "I'm getting a suite at the Langham. Neutral space." Nyla crossed her arms. "Why not just stay?" "Because I'm not hiding. And I'm not running," Zariah said. "I just need space that belongs to me." Nyla smiled. There she is. That night, Corbin received another envelope. It was waiting in his personal mailbox, the one no staff touched. Inside, Zariah's handwriting in blue ink, Corbin. "If I agree to talk, it won't be in our home. Not yet. There's a cafe near Lake Shore that stays open till midnight. They don't reserve tables. You'll have to get there early. If you're still there at 8 p.m. on Thursday, we'll talk. If not, I'll take that as your answer. Z." Corbin placed the letter down gently. Thursday night, 7:15 p.m. Corbin arrived at the cafe. No driver, no security. Just him, a black coat, and a book he hadn't opened in months. He picked a quiet table in the corner, facing the door. He ordered chamomile tea. He waited. At 8:03 p.m., the bell over the door jingled. Zariah walked in. No makeup. Hair pulled into a sleek bun. A sand-colored wrap coat cinched at her waist. Corbin stood before she even reached the table. She nodded once. "You're late." He opened his mouth. She smirked. "I'm joking." He relaxed a little. They sat. She ordered peppermint tea. Silence held them for a minute before she spoke. "Why her?" He didn't dodge it. "Because she was easy. She laughed at everything I said. She never challenged me. And when my day ended, I didn't have to explain who I was with her." Zariah tilted her head. "And with me? You see everything," he said. "You ask questions I don't have answers to. You demand I be real. And when I fail, you don't look away. That terrifies me." Zariah stirred her tea slowly. He added, "But it also makes me want to be a man worth being seen." She looked at him. Quiet, unreadable. "I'm not promising anything tonight," she said. "And I'm not moving back yet." "I know. But if you're really in therapy," she added, "then let's see if that version of you shows up twice a week." Corbin nodded. "And if he does? We'll go from there." 2 weeks passed. No sleepovers. No "I miss you" texts. Just sessions, conversations, gaps filled with effort. Zariah watched him, measured not his words, but his consistency. He showed up, on time, with notes. He asked her questions in sessions that made her pause. "What does safety look like for you? What do you need that you've never said out loud? What's something I stopped doing that you miss?" And when she answered, he didn't fix it. He listened. One night, Zariah left her suite and went home to the penthouse, alone. She walked through the front door. The scent of her lavender diffuser had returned. The space didn't feel like his anymore. It felt open. She walked to the bedroom. No trace of a mirror. No notes, no missed messages, just a folded blanket on her side of the bed, and a single sticky note on her pillow. "You don't owe me anything. But I'm glad you walked in that night, because now I see what I almost lost." Zariah picked up the note and sat down. For the first time since that night in the study, she let herself cry, not because of pain, but because she no longer felt invisible. Before the penthouse. Before Corbin. Before the luxury skincare in her marble-lined bathroom, and the driver, who waited in a black SUV out front, there was just Zariah Bell. Raised in the south side of Chicago, daughter of a schoolteacher and a janitor, big sister, valedictorian, self-made. Zariah didn't grow up with generational wealth. She grew up with generational wisdom. Her mother taught her to walk with dignity, even when her shoes had creases. Her father taught her to say no like she owned the air it was spoken in. She learned to take up space without apologizing. At 15, she started her first hustle, branding flyers for neighborhood businesses. She charged $25 for logo touch-ups and $10 per design edit. By 22, she had paid her way through college with freelance gigs and built a client list that stretched beyond state lines. When other girls were buying heels for club nights, Zariah was saving for domain names. By 27, she had her own firm, Bellmark Strategy, a boutique, marketing and brand strategy company for real estate and tech ventures. She never borrowed a dollar. She never begged a name. She walked into rooms where no one expected her to be in charge, and never left until they asked her back. The night she first met Corbin, she wasn't wearing luxury labels. She was in a navy jumpsuit from a local designer, kitten heels, and a briefcase that had seen 3 years of train rides. The meeting was at a real estate summit in downtown Chicago, and she wasn't supposed to be there. Her firm was subcontracted under a larger agency. Bellmark didn't have the name power yet, but their strategy work was unmatched. Zariah was there to observe, to learn. But when the lead strategist fumbled mid-pitch and couldn't answer Corbin's direct question about ROI from a failed Miami condo campaign, she stepped forward. Calmly, professionally. "May I?" she asked. Everyone turned. Corbin narrowed his eyes. Zariah clicked the clicker and pulled up a slide with raw data. "Your Miami condo rollout tanked because your visuals focused on luxury amenities, but you ignored community-based messaging. People don't buy buildings, they buy belonging." The room was silent. Corbin leaned back in his chair and nodded slowly. "Go on." Zariah gave him 2 more minutes of straight facts. No fluff, no over-explaining. She didn't pitch herself. She pitched clarity. When she finished, Corbin said 5 words. "What's the name of your firm?" 3 days later, he emailed her personally. Subject: Let's talk. Body: You said people buy belonging. I believe that. Let's build something together. Corbin. Zariah didn't swoon. She responded with a clear scope of services, rates, and next steps. He respected that. The work started. The flirtation came slowly. She noticed how he watched her during meetings, not in a hungry way, but curious. She didn't give him flirt back. She gave him eye contact. She gave him results. Until one night, a late dinner review meeting, he asked, "What would it take for you to let me take you out?" No pitches, no business. Zariah wiped her mouth and set her fork down. "I'd need to know the version of you who shows up when you're not closing deals." Their first date was at a rooftop garden restaurant. Corbin showed up without a driver, holding 2 takeout containers and a blanket. "I figured you deal with suits all day," he said. "Thought you might prefer something real." They ate Thai food under string lights and talked about childhood. He told her about being the youngest of 3 and how his father didn't believe in therapy. She told him about building things that didn't need permission to exist. He looked at her like she was sunlight in a city full of brick. That night, she wrote in her notes app, "He listens in layers, but I won't teach him how to love me. He'll have to choose that lesson himself." Fast forward to marriage. The wedding was small, intentional. 30 guests, no press, no designer drama, just a garden, 2 handwritten vows, and one promise that Zariah made out loud. "If you love me, you'll never ask me to become smaller for your world." Corbin whispered, "Never," and kissed her like a vow. But months later, she noticed the shift. The meetings got longer. The texts got shorter. The nights got quieter. The woman who once had her name on firm signage was now being called Mr. Dane's wife in business lounges. She never resented the marriage. She resented losing herself inside it. So when she stepped out of that guest room 3 nights after the study incident and looked at herself in the mirror, she didn't see betrayal first. She saw a woman she used to know. Staring back, Zariah took a long walk that afternoon near Millennium Park. No makeup. No assistance. She stopped to buy a cup of coffee from a street vendor she used to frequent before Corbin. The man recognized her. "You're still doing branding?" She smiled softly. "Always." He handed her the cup and said, "Good. You were born for that." And for the first time in weeks, she believed it again. It didn't happen overnight. Corbin Dane didn't sweep Zariah off her feet. He earned her through consistency, through patience, through unexpected softness that lived beneath his billionaire exterior. Their early meetings, post-pitch, were all business. Strategy calls, market forecasts, branding corrections. But Zariah noticed small things. He always remembered how she took her coffee. Oat milk, 2 pumps of caramel, no sugar. He never interrupted when she spoke, even when others did. And when their first major launch went sideways due to a tech issue, he didn't place blame. He took accountability, stood beside her, and backed her recommendations publicly. "I'll take the hit," he told his team. "But we follow her lead now." That was the moment Zariah felt something shift. He wasn't chasing power. He respected it, especially when it came from someone like her. Weeks turned to months. What started as collaboration slowly bled into connection. One evening, after a long shoot downtown, Corbin offered to drive her home himself. Zariah hesitated. "You have 3 drivers on call. You don't need to play chauffeur." He smiled. "Maybe I just want to know what music you play when you're not pitching million-dollar visions." She agreed. In the car, he played jazz, old school. Grover Washington, Phyllis Hyman. She didn't expect that. "You don't seem like a man who listens to soft things," she said. He turned down the volume. "That's because people only see the noise." A week later, he asked her out. For real. No meetings, no team, just the 2 of them. He picked a soul food spot on the west side. Small, family-owned, red booths and cornbread that melted like butter. Zariah wore jeans. He wore a leather jacket. They sat in the back booth for nearly 3 hours, talking about everything from childhood dreams to their most irrational fears. Hers? Losing herself in someone else's world. His? Letting someone in and failing them. When the bill came, she reached for her purse. He stopped her gently. "You bought your own plate your whole life," he said. "Let someone cover one night without strings." Zariah looked at him, not through the lens of business anymore, but as a man. And, for the first time, she didn't feel like she had to brace herself for disappointment. Their relationship moved slow, by design. No Instagram posts, no public dinners for the sake of press. Corbin invited her into the quiet corners of his life, the ones nobody saw. She met his aunt first, not his board members. She spent Sundays with him at the gym, not in the spotlight. He came to her firm's holiday party, stood in the back, and clapped like he wasn't worth billions. Her staff adored him. "He looks at you like you built the sky," Naomi once whispered to her. Zariah smiled, but she didn't let that distract her from what mattered, staying whole. She set boundaries. "I don't disappear into titles. If I'm your partner, I stay visible." Corbin never challenged that. In fact, he insisted her firm consult on 3 of his biggest urban redevelopment campaigns. Not as a favor, but under contract. "I want you where you belong," he told her. "In rooms that bend when you walk in." The proposal wasn't flashy. It wasn't at a gala. It was in her old office, the original 1-bedroom studio she kept as a creative escape. He walked in with takeout. She thought it was another late-night strategy dinner, until she opened the bag and saw a small velvet box next to the curry. He stood quietly, no speech, no showmanship, just said, "Zariah, I know how to build towers, I know how to scale markets, but I want to learn how to build forever, with you. Will you teach me?" She looked at him, then at the ring, then at her own reflection in the window. She didn't feel like she was losing anything. She felt expanded. "Yes," she said, "but don't expect me to teach with silence. You'll get the full syllabus." He laughed. "I'm ready." The wedding came 6 months later. It was intimate, garden setting, family only. Her dad walked her down the aisle, trying to hold back tears. Corbin cried first. Zariah didn't wear a veil. She didn't need one. When she read her vows, they weren't poetic. They were direct. "I promise to love you from a full place, never empty. And I ask you to do the same. Because I didn't come here to be rescued. I came to be partnered." He kissed her like he'd waited his whole life for that kind of woman. The first few months of marriage felt like magic. They traveled, ate dinner together almost every night, worked on projects as a team. He started showing up at her photo shoots. She attended his community talks. They kept work out of the bedroom. They kept phones out of dinner. They spoke up, even when it was hard. But slowly, real life crept in. Campaigns stacked. Investors called. Deadlines overlapped. Corbin missed dinner twice, then 3 times. Zariah started to feel like a priority only when it was convenient. And she didn't say anything. At first, she believed he'd notice, but he didn't. Until that night in the study. Until she walked in unannounced and saw presence with someone else. The exact thing she'd been craving. Not physical betrayal, but the kind that erodes trust in the small ways. Now, sitting in the Langham suite weeks after that night, Zariah looked out the window and asked herself, if he built this love once, could he rebuild it again? She didn't know yet, but for the first time, she was willing to wait and see on her own terms. Corbin Dane's life didn't start in a penthouse. He grew up in Hyde Park, not the ivy-draped side near the university, the other side, the part with cracked sidewalks and beat-up basketball courts. His father, Henry Dane, was a carpenter, disciplined, quiet, the kind of man who built things with precision but raised children like they were blueprints. No room for softness. Corbin was the youngest of 3 boys. He learned early that silence kept you safe, that emotions made you vulnerable, that asking for attention meant you weren't strong enough. So he built a wall, not around others, around himself. By 17, he was already flipping used phones and reselling sneakers. By 19, he had bought his first rental property using pooled savings and a private seller who didn't ask many questions. He didn't party. He didn't chase women. He chased scale. The more he achieved, the more people left him alone. That's how he liked it, until he didn't. At 26, he became one of Chicago's youngest real estate developers to close a $50 million acquisition deal. He made the papers. He made TV. He made enemies. But he still went home to silence. His relationships never lasted longer than 3 months. His longest friend was his CPA. He wasn't cruel. He was consistent about keeping people out. And then came Zariah. He didn't realize he needed her. Not at first. He was drawn to her efficiency, elegance, her clarity. But it was her honesty that undid him. The way she looked at him like she saw everything, the power, the posture, the polish, and still asked, "Do you ever just stop?" Nobody had asked him that. Not his brothers, not his mother, not any woman before her. Zariah didn't want his net worth. She wanted his presence, and that scared him more than failure ever had. He didn't know how to give presents. He knew how to give things, vacations, credit cards, a luxury car delivered on her 30th birthday with a bow bigger than the hood. She smiled, but she didn't melt, because Zariah wasn't for sale. And in a world where everyone took what Corbin gave without question, Zariah required something he didn't know how to offer, access to the parts he buried. He tried. In the first few months of marriage, he set reminders to leave the office early. He cancelled meetings just to eat dinner with her. He walked away from deals that would have kept him out of town for too long. But old patterns creep in when no one's watching. The office got louder. The money got bigger. The distractions multiplied. He thought he could juggle it. He thought Zariah understands. She always said, "I know what drive looks like." But he didn't see what she wasn't saying. "I know what neglect feels like too." Corbin never intended to neglect her. But the truth was, he hadn't healed the part of himself that equated busyness with worth. He didn't know how to rest, didn't know how to sit in stillness without feeling guilt, didn't know how to hold space for someone else's feelings when he'd spent years ignoring his own. His first therapy session with Mr. Callan didn't go smoothly. "I'm not broken," Corbin said. "I just need to adjust." Mr. Callan smiled gently. "And what if adjusting means facing the parts of you that believe you don't deserve softness?" Corbin looked away. "That's not true." "It might not be," Mr. Callan said, "but let's find out." Session after session, they peeled layers back. Corbin talked about his father's silence, the way he used to build cabinets in the garage without saying a word to his sons for hours. He talked about his first business partner, the one who stole from him and left him with debt and distrust. He admitted that when Zariah laughed too loudly or asked for time, part of him flinched. Not because she was wrong, but because vulnerability still felt foreign. "Do you want love?" Mr. Callan asked him once. "More than anything," Corbin said. "Then learn the language," he replied. "Because the one you speak now doesn't translate." Corbin started journaling, not because he enjoyed it, but because Mr. Callan said, "You can't fix what you won't name." He wrote about the guilt of missing Zariah's birthday dinner. He wrote about the moment she looked at him like she didn't recognize him. He wrote about Amira, not because he wanted her, but because she made him feel easy. She didn't demand growth. She didn't require depth. Zariah did, and now he realized that was the gift, not the punishment. Late one night, Corbin stood alone in their walk-in closet. Zariah hadn't returned home yet. He stared at the empty space where her favorite boots used to be, the shelf where she kept her journals. He touched the edge of a folded sweater she forgot. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Please give me the chance to deserve her." Corbin didn't grow up with models of emotional expression. He knew how to provide. He knew how to protect. But how to be present. How to love without ego. That was new territory. So, he took Mr. Callan's advice. Learn her, not just love her. He started from scratch. Step 1. Revisit her voice. Corbin pulled out the notebooks from the early Bellmark projects. Zariah's notes were always detailed. Clean margins, bullet-pointed goals, bolded mission statements. He read every line. He remembered how she thought, how she organized chaos with clarity, how she moved rooms without raising her voice. She wasn't drawn to power. She was drawn to people who were anchored. And somewhere along the way, he had become wind. Step 2. Rebuild home with her in mind. He hired a professional organizer to clear out the study, removed the leather lounge Amira once sat in. He swapped it with a writing table, oak, minimal, with a space for Zariah's books and a single orchid. The kitchen? He stocked it with oat milk again, the kind she liked, not the overpriced one his chef recommended. The fridge had her favorite coconut yogurt. No loud declarations, no grand gifts, just quiet signs, "I see you." Step 3. Show up consistently. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Corbin arrived 5 minutes early for therapy. No assistance, no calls taken. He brought notes, asked questions. What does safety look like when I'm not physically near her? How do I manage emotional flooding instead of shutting down? What if she outgrows me emotionally? Mr. Callan was blunt. Your wife doesn't need a fixer. She needs a partner. That means you grow, not just perform. Corbin nodded. I want to grow. Then you'll need to stay uncomfortable long enough to become new. Step 4. Communicate like she matters, even in silence. Zariah didn't like unnecessary talking, but she appreciated clarity. So, Corbin started sending short notes. Not texts, actual handwritten cards, left in the mailbox of her Langham suite. Tuesday. Your voice has always been my compass. I just finally stopped pretending I knew the way without it. Thursday. The silence in the penthouse is louder than your absence. But I'll wait. Even if it takes time. She didn't reply, but she didn't return them either. And that, for Corbin, was enough of a signal to keep going. Step 5. Take action without needing praise. He reached out to his team and made one small but major change. No after-hours meetings past 6:30 p.m., unless pre-approved by him. He restructured how executive reports were sent. Fewer late-night calls, more efficiency. His coup asked, "Is this about your wife?" Corbin answered, "It's about my marriage, and that deserves leadership too." Meanwhile, at the Langham, Zariah noticed the changes. The delivery driver who used to bring her orders at her firm now smiled and handed her a hand-sealed envelope twice a week. She never opened it immediately. She let it sit on the side table. But every night, she read them. She didn't melt. She didn't run back. She watched, because consistency wasn't built in a day. She wanted to know if he was growing because he missed her, or because he missed himself in her presence. One night, Naomi said something that stuck. They were in the Bellmark office, reviewing launch materials, when Naomi paused and said, "You know what's rare, Z?" Zariah looked up. "A man who admits he needs to unlearn." Zariah blinked. "Why do you say that?" "Because I watched Mr. Dane get laughed at by 2 execs last week when he stopped a 7 p.m. meeting and said, 'My marriage is on the line, and I'm not missing it for quarterly reports.'" Zariah didn't respond. She didn't need to. But that night, she sat on the sweet bed a little longer. Her fingers hovered over her phone. She almost called. Instead, she wrote something. The next morning, Corbin found a package in his home office. Inside, a hardcover journal, a pen, and a note. "If you're serious about the work, start recording it. Let your growth outlive our arguments. Love, Zariah." He held the journal for a long time before opening it. The first page, what I thought love meant, and what I now know it actually requires. He started writing. Sunday evening came quiet and still. Zariah stood barefoot on the front porch of her sister's home, a cup of warm lemon water in one hand, her journal in the other. She'd written a single sentence that afternoon. "Loyalty without effort is laziness wrapped in pretty words." Her phone buzzed. Corbin Dane. One new text message. I'm outside, not rushing anything. Just sitting in the car. You don't owe me your presence. But I'd like a few minutes, if you can spare it. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. She handed Nyla her journal and said, "If I'm not back in 20, come get me." Nyla nodded and stepped aside. Corbin stood outside his car as Zariah approached. He didn't wear cologne, didn't bring flowers. He wore jeans, a white tee, and a face that held no armor. Zariah didn't speak first. Neither did he. They stood under the soft flicker of the porch light. It buzzed faintly. Zariah's arms were crossed, not cold, just guarded. Corbin's hands stayed in plain sight. No pocket hiding, no distractions. "Thank you for coming out," he said finally. She tilted her head slightly. "Why now?" He paused. "Because before, I thought time would fix what I broke. But time just exposed how long I ignored what you needed." Zariah's eyes didn't soften. "Do you know what I needed that night?" He nodded. "Yes. Say it." Corbin inhaled. "You needed to walk into your home and feel safe. You needed to see that no part of our life had room for question marks. You needed me to shut the door on anything that made you feel secondary." Zariah's lip twitched, not in a smile, but in restraint. "And instead, I left that door cracked." They stood in silence again. Zariah stepped down one stair. They were now eye to eye. She didn't blink. "You know why it hurt, Corbin? Because I didn't see a man in that room who was caught cheating. I saw a man too comfortable being admired by someone who didn't build him." Corbin swallowed hard. "You didn't cheat on my body. You cheated on the standard I set by loving you well." His head lowered slightly. I know. I gave you my clarity, and you fed off someone else's convenience. I know. She stepped even closer now. No more porch-light buffer. They were shoulder to shoulder in truth. And now you want what? Corbin looked up. I want to earn a second chance. Not by rushing you, not by begging, just by becoming the man who doesn't need to be reminded again. Zariah looked him over, studied his eyes. What if I don't want to be married to the version of you who forgot who I was? He didn't flinch. Then, I'll respect that. And if I say you have to wait, with no promise of a return, I'll still wait. Why? Corbin's voice cracked slightly. Because when I lost your trust, I lost the best parts of myself. And even if you never come back, I still want to be the kind of man who deserved you. Zariah stepped back. Her breath was steady, but her pulse raced. You said something before, that I see everything and don't flinch. You remember that? Corbin nodded. That's not a compliment. That's a warning. He looked confused. She continued, because I don't flinch. But I will walk. The porch light flickered again. Zariah exhaled. I'm not coming home, not yet. But I'm willing to meet you in the middle. Neutral space. Weekly. Corbin straightened slightly. Therapy? She nodded. Not to fix us. To see if there's still an us worth repairing. He nodded slowly. And I'm allowed to ask questions. She said, anything. And you don't get defensive when I say what hurt. I'll write it down if I have to. She stepped back up the stair, ending the conversation not with warmth, but with clarity. Then I'll see you Thursday at 6. You bring your honesty. I'll bring my truth. Corbin stayed on the sidewalk long after she went inside. He didn't smile. He didn't cry. He just stood there and whispered to the dark. Thank you. Thursday at 5:45 p.m., Corbin arrived at the agreed neutral space, a quiet therapy office in West Loop. No glass towers, no lavish reception. Just a calm beige room with warm lighting and 2 chairs that didn't look like they belonged to either person. He sat first. No phone, no assistant, no briefcase, just him and the journal Zariah gave him. He opened to a fresh page. At the top, he wrote, Session 1, no performances, just presence. At 6:01 p.m., Zariah walked in. She wore a deep green blazer, fitted jeans and flats. No rings, no lip gloss, but her posture still filled the room. She didn't greet him with a hug. She didn't ask how he was. She simply sat, crossed one leg over the other, and looked ahead. The therapist, a middle-aged black woman named Dr. Leona Paris, smiled as she reviewed her notes. We're not here to save your marriage. We're here to understand if it still deserves the space it once held. Agreed? Zariah nodded. Agreed. Corbin echoed her. Yes. Dr. Paris started with one question. Zariah, what do you need in this space? Zariah answered calmly, but with weight. Clarity, honesty, and a partner who's not trying to be perfect, just present. She turned slightly to Corbin. And you? He didn't blink. I need to listen without defense. I need to learn what parts of me were hurting her while I thought I was helping. And I need to accept if what I want is no longer aligned with what she deserves. Zariah didn't respond, but her arms loosened at her sides. They began. The ground rules were simple. Don't interrupt. You speak from your own feelings, and no scoreboard arguments. No repeating I'm trying. No making pain small just to make comfort big. Zariah went first. She talked about how it wasn't just that night in the study. It was all the smaller moments that led to that crack. The nights he came home after she had eaten. The way he used to ask for her opinion and slowly stopped. How she felt like an accessory to his life instead of a CO author. It's not that I didn't believe you loved me, she said. It's that your love came with silence, and I don't survive in quiet. Corbin listened. He didn't shift, didn't explain. He wrote. When she finished, Dr. Paris asked, "What did you hear?" He replied without looking at his notes. "I heard that I stopped seeing you, that I started assuming you'd always be there. And I heard that my silence made you feel like you were sleeping beside a stranger." Zoraya's eyes didn't tear, but her lips tightened. For once, he understood the assignment. In the next session, Corbin opened up, about his father, about control, about equating success with distance. "I was raised to think strength was silence," he said. "But I married a woman who speaks in presence, and I punished her by disappearing into work instead of unlearning what that cost." Zoraya said nothing, but she wrote something in her own small notebook. At the end of the session, Dr. Paris gave homework. "Both of you, I want you to write down the 5 most important non-negotiables for building forward. Share them next week." The following Thursday, Zoraya handed him her list. Zoraya's 5. 1. Don't lie to protect me. I'm not fragile. I'm invested. 2. Say the hard thing early. Let me grow with it, not around it. 3. Let your actions echo your words, daily, not dramatically. 4. Include me without needing my permission to remember I exist. 5. Don't love me out of guilt. Love me with choice. Corbin read it once, then again. He nodded, but said nothing, then handed her his. Corbin's 5. 1. Remind me when I'm drifting. I don't hear absence until it screams. 2. Tell me when you need more, not after you've withdrawn. 3. Help me build routines around you, not just around revenue. 4. Don't assume I know what you need. Say it, and I'll show up. 5. If we fall again, fall toward me, not away. Zoraya looked up at him. For the first time in weeks, her expression softened. After the session, they walked outside. No hand-holding, no forced closeness. Just 2 people sharing sidewalk space. At the corner, Zoraya paused. "I'm not promising where this leads." Corbin nodded. "I'm not asking for the destination. I'm asking to walk beside you again, even if we take detours." She gave him one small nod, then walked to her car, alone. But for the first time in months, she didn't feel like she was walking away from him. She felt like she was walking with herself, and leaving the door cracked, just enough. Have you ever had to rebuild something with someone who once broke your trust? What rules did you set? What boundaries did you draw? Drop your answer in the comments. Your story might help someone else going through the same thing. Like this video if you believe love should be earned, not assumed. Subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories for more life-changing stories that speak truth. Zoraya never returned to the penthouse with a suitcase. She came back with a clipboard. It was Thursday morning, 3 weeks since the cafe meeting, and Corbin had invited her over to discuss some logistics for an upcoming charity property launch they were once supposed to lead together. Instead of talking business, she walked in, surveyed the space, and said calmly, "I need to reset the energy in this house before I can sit in it again." Corbin stepped back, respectful. "Say the word, whatever you need." She pulled out a sheet titled Non-Negotiables for Coexisting. Without confusion, he raised an eyebrow but didn't challenge it. Zoraya's reset list. No Amira. No discussion about her. Ever. Her chapter is closed. No late-night meetings or unscheduled calls between 7 to 9 p.m., even if we're in separate places. No romantic gestures without emotional presence. No assumptions that closeness equals reconciliation. So no discussions about moving back in. I'll decide if, when, and how. Corbin read the list twice, then reached into a drawer, pulled out a folder labeled North Park Project, Bellmark, and handed it to her. "This is yours. I told the board you're the only one with the vision for it. I stepped off the committee last week." Zoraya blinked. "You removed yourself?" He nodded. "So you wouldn't have to question whether your seat at the table was earned." She took the folder, said nothing, but her grip on the clipboard relaxed. That evening, she returned to the Langham. Alone. But for the first time, it didn't feel like escape. It felt like choice. She laid the folder on the bed and flipped through it. The North Park project was their dream campaign. A full community rebrand, new housing, local business integration, minority-owned contractor partnerships. The kind of work that wasn't about money, it was about legacy. Corbin had offered it to her. Fully. She remembered how months ago, when she first pitched the idea, he looked at her across the dinner table and said, "You see the city like it's personal. That's your power. I just build the walls." That was the night they made love without saying a word. Now she saw the same vision in writing, with no strings. He hadn't offered it to win her back. He offered it because he believed in her, even when he wasn't sure he still had a place beside her. That mattered. At therapy the next day, she brought it up. "I expected him to fight harder," she told Dr. Paris. "And how does it feel that he didn't?" Zariah answered slowly, "Like he's finally letting me breathe." Dr. Paris nodded. Sometimes respect sounds like silence. Across the room, Corbin didn't interrupt. He just listened, hands folded, notebook open. When Dr. Paris asked if he had anything to say, he spoke gently. "I'm learning that letting her choose me rather than chase me is the only way I'll know I ever truly deserved her." Zariah looked over. No tears, no smile. Just acknowledgement. She wasn't looking for performance. She was looking for peace. That weekend, she called her mom. They hadn't talked much about the situation. Her mother didn't pry. But that Sunday, Zariah told her everything. The night she walked in, the nights she didn't sleep, the letters, the sessions, the reset. Her mother listened quietly, and then she said, "Marriage is not about being perfect, it's about being accountable. You drew your line. Now let him show you if he can walk beside it, without erasing it." Zariah closed her eyes. That was the reminder she didn't know she needed. Back at the penthouse, Corbin stood in the middle of the living room staring at the space where Zariah's art once hung. He didn't replace it. He left it bare. Not out of sadness, out of truth. "This wall stays empty until she decides what belongs on it," he told his housekeeper. He wasn't filling space anymore. He was learning to hold it. The next few weeks were a quiet rebuild. No public declarations, no lavish attempts to win her back. Just effort. Grounded, private, intentional. Corbin showed up, not in headlines, but in habits. He now left the office at 5:30 sharp. He started scheduling weekly meetings with his project teams around his therapy sessions, not the other way around. He even reinstated lunch breaks, not to eat, but to pause. Because silence, when chosen, becomes space. When avoided, it becomes distance. He was done avoiding. On a Friday afternoon, Zariah stepped into the North Park site office for her first formal walkthrough since the project restarted under her leadership. All eyes turned as she entered, heels firm, head high, blueprints in hand. But it wasn't her presence that caught everyone off guard. It was who stepped out of the room to let her lead. Corbin Dane. He didn't try to stay. He didn't shadow her. He gave a nod of respect, shook the lead contractor's hand, and left with this line: "No one sees the soul of this community better than Ms. Bell. Trust her eyes." Zariah stood still for a beat after he left. She didn't need his permission. But that respect, it resonated. That evening, she opened her journal at the Langham, wrote a single line: "The man I married has stopped trying to prove love and started protecting the space for it to grow." They still weren't back together. No sleepovers, no post-session dinners. But they were seeing each other weekly, with purpose. Therapy deepened. Dr. Paris gave them new work. "This week, I want each of you to describe the first moment you felt disconnected. Not blamed, but unseen." Zariah went first. "It was the week of the Seattle deal. You were supposed to join me at the women-led investment pitch I helped organize. I texted you the morning of. No reply. When I got home, you said something like, 'Sorry, I got caught up,' and then asked me how it went. While scrolling your phone, she looked down. I realized I had stopped being part of your priority list. I became the thing that filled the leftover time, instead of the reason you protected any. Corbin's throat tightened. He remembered that day. He remembered thinking she was fine, that she always bounced back, that Zariah handled things. But now, he heard what she never said. She didn't want to handle everything. She wanted to share it. Corbin's turn. It was the week after your campaign went viral. Everyone wanted interviews with you. Even Vogue reached out. Zariah raised an eyebrow. I remember. You were in a whirlwind. Deservedly. I saw you shining. But I didn't feel like I had a place in your spotlight. He looked down. I didn't say it because I thought it would sound weak, but I felt replaced. Zariah's lips parted slightly. Not from shock, from recognition. So instead of saying something, she asked, You drifted? Corbin nodded. I punished you with distance, then blamed your strength for my absence. Doctor, Paris spoke gently. This is how distance grows, one withheld sentence at a time. That night, neither of them went home feeling fixed, but they both went home aware. And that was forward motion. 3 days later, Corbin dropped something off at her office. Not a gift, not flowers, a letter. Zariah opened it after her final client call. It read, Z, you didn't fall in love with what I had. You fell for how I saw you, and how you made me want to see myself. I stopped looking. I'm learning to look again. Not at you, with you. You once said, love shouldn't cost your silence. I agree. So I'm learning to speak, even when it shakes. See, that night, she didn't reply. She showed up, at the penthouse, unannounced, wearing the same hoodie she wore when they painted their first office space together years ago. Corbin opened the door, stunned. Zariah stepped in. No kiss, no dramatics. She said one line, I want to sit in the house we didn't know how to protect and see if we're still worthy of building it again. He nodded slowly. You'll sit, I'll listen, and for the next 2 hours, they did just that. No fixes, just presence. The next phase of healing wasn't loud. It wasn't grand. It was made of small, intentional moments that could have easily gone unnoticed, but didn't. Corbin and Zariah had not officially reconciled. No statement, no moving boxes, no photo uploads, but they had reached something more sacred, a rhythm, not perfection, not performance, just a steady showing up. They kept therapy sessions going, now down to once a week. Corbin still journaled. Zariah still stayed at the Langham. But every Tuesday evening, she joined him at the penthouse kitchen table for dinner. Nothing fancy. No chef-prepped meals. Just the two of them. He cooked. She critiqued. One night, it was under-seasoned salmon. Another night, a slightly burnt stir-fry. Zariah raised her eyebrow. What's this? Charred intention? Corbin chuckled. That's the taste of effort, baby. She didn't smile. Not fully, but her eyes did. One night, she asked the question, Why didn't you defend yourself when I walked in that night? Corbin set down his fork. Because I knew that no matter what I said, the image already spoke louder than I could. She leaned back, arms folded, but nothing happened, right? He met her eyes. Calm, nothing physical. But I let a mirror enter a space that belonged to you. I let my guard down, not as a man, but as a husband, and that was enough. Zariah looked away. Do you know how long it took me to start believing you again? He nodded, and I don't take a second of that trust for granted now. Later that week, Corbin made a choice that surprised even his board. He declined a keynote speech in Dubai, a deal that would have meant major PR buzz and 7-figure leads. His coup called, You sure, sir? This is the one they've been pushing since January. Corbin didn't hesitate. I'm not leaving right now. I'm rebuilding something more important than a stage. He ended the call. Later that night, he told Zariah over dinner. She didn't say thank you. Instead, she said, That's not a favor to me. That's a responsibility to you. Corbin nodded. I know, she continued, slower this time. Because the man I want to stay with knows when to pause. Not because I said so, but because he values what he's pausing for. Dr. Paris called it emotional maturity in action. During their next session, she addressed it directly. Zariah, are you starting to feel emotionally safe again? Zariah looked at Corbin, then back to Dr. Paris. I'm starting to believe that love can evolve if both people are willing to keep showing up, even when they're tired. And Corbin? He answered without pause. I'm learning that presence is louder than promises. Zariah started to linger a bit longer at the penthouse after dinner. One night, she helped him fold laundry. Another, she watched half a documentary with her feet on the couch. But she always left before 10 p.m., boundary intact, line respected. Corbin never asked her to stay. He simply walked her to the door. Every time. No pressure. No sad eyes. Just one line. Thanks for coming back here. Even if just for today, that line became a thread. One she followed, gently, back into trust. On the last Tuesday of the month, Zariah arrived early. Corbin was still finishing a call in the study. She wandered into the guest bedroom, the same one she'd retreated to that night. The night, everything changed. It looked different now. New bedding, fresh paint, a framed photo of her grandmother's quote, "Truth doesn't need volume, just presence." She stepped in slowly, looked around, then called out, "Corbin?" He appeared in the hallway. "Yeah?" She looked him in the eye. "You kept the room." He nodded. "I didn't want to erase where the shift started. It keeps me accountable." Zariah walked up to him, close, but not too close. "You're not who you were that night." He held her gaze. "Neither are you." She nodded. Then said softly, "Let's see who we become next." The first time Zariah stayed the night again, it wasn't planned. She had come over for their usual Tuesday dinner. Corbin made roasted vegetables, grilled chicken, and jasmine rice. The kitchen smelled like garlic and new beginnings. They talked longer than usual. The conversation flowed, not just about healing or work, but about music, childhood memories, and the random fact that Zariah used to secretly compete in spoken-word poetry back in college. Corbin nearly choked on his drink. "Wait, you? Spoken word?" She smirked. "You think I only speak in strategy decks?" He laughed. "I think you're full of surprises." Zariah tilted her head. "You used to look at me like you couldn't believe someone like me existed." "I still do." She didn't smile. After dinner, they sat in the living room. A light rain tapped against the windows. Zariah pulled her knees under her on the couch. Corbin played a jazz record. Soft, warm, neither of them moved for a long time. When the power went out briefly, a flicker, just a second, Zariah exhaled and leaned her head against the back cushion. "You want to go?" he asked gently. She looked at the time. It was past 11. "No. Want me to call your driver?" "No, Corbin." She didn't need to say more. He got up, returned a few minutes later with one of her old sleep shirts. The faded Chicago girls don't cry, they conquer tea. It smelled like fresh linen. He handed it to her, then walked away. Gave her space, let her decide. That night, Zariah lay in the guest room. Not because she was angry. Not because she was distant, but because she was still reclaiming what comfort meant on her terms. Corbin didn't knock, didn't hover. But before she fell asleep, she opened her eyes and found a folded note on the nightstand. "I won't ask you to stay, but if you do, I promise not to take it as a win. I'll take it as trust, and I'll guard it." She held the note against her chest, eyes closed. For the first time since that night she walked in on him and Amira, she felt like she was choosing peace again. Not over him, not beneath him. With him. The next morning, she woke to the smell of pancakes. She walked into the kitchen barefoot. Corbin was humming, off-key, flipping blueberry pancakes with more focus than finesse. He turned, startled. "You're up." "You cook better when you're nervous," she said. He smiled. "I wasn't sure if I should make coffee." Zariah stepped forward, opened the cabinet, and pulled out a mug. "1 creamer. No Balium sugar," she said. "You still take it that way?" "Yes." He poured the coffee. She accepted it. They stood in silence, sipping. Then she spoke. "I'm not all the way back yet, but last night, I felt safe." He didn't respond immediately. Then he said, "That's the only win I need right now." That weekend, Corbin cancelled a big retreat in Aspen. His team was shocked. He didn't explain. He didn't justify. Instead, he drafted a new leadership memo. Time off doesn't mean disengagement, it means refocus. The company is only as healthy as the people who run it. And I'm choosing health, at home and within. Zariah, meanwhile, restructured her own life. She re-established Bellmark's mentorship program for young black women entering the marketing industry. She reconnected with her old spoken word group. She booked a one-night gig at a downtown lounge, anonymous, unpromoted. Corbin found out and showed up anyway, sat in the back. Didn't say a word. She performed a piece titled Unlearning How to Survive. And when she walked off the small stage, their eyes met. He didn't approach her. She didn't wave, but a slow, shared smile passed between them, and it said everything. That night, back at the penthouse, Zariah didn't sleep in the guest room. She didn't bring bags. She didn't announce a return. She simply walked into the master bedroom, pulled back the covers, and lay down. Corbin walked in minutes later, paused in the doorway. She looked up. "This doesn't mean forever. It means right now. I feel like you've earned this night." He nodded. "That's more than enough." He didn't rush to the bed. He showered, changed, brushed his teeth, then slipped in slowly, careful not to move too fast. They lay side by side in silence for several minutes. Then, Zariah whispered, "Can I ask you something? Anything? Do you still love me?" He didn't hesitate. "I never stopped. I just stopped proving it. And I'm learning how to start again, not with words, with presence." She turned slightly toward him. "Then don't stop." "I won't." She reached over and laced her fingers through his. And for the first time since that storm of mistrust cracked their foundation, they both fell asleep, together, without needing to say more. Zariah didn't wake up with fireworks in her chest. She woke up with peace. Not the kind that screamed, "We're healed," but the kind that whispered, "You're home, but you're also whole." Corbin was already up. She heard the soft rhythm of the shower, the clink of a mug being placed on the nightstand. She sat up slowly and saw it. A cup of her coffee, oat milk, 1 creamer, no sugar, waiting, still warm. No note this time, just the cup. It said everything. She walked into the kitchen 20 minutes later. Corbin stood at the sink, drying a plate. He turned and froze, not because he didn't expect her, but because she hadn't said she would stay the night again. He didn't ask. She didn't explain. Instead, she said, "You ever learn how to make those eggs properly?" He grinned, light scramble, low heat. "I'm practically a chef now." Let's not get ahead of ourselves. She stayed. She sat. She let him cook, let herself receive without suspicion. That was new. Later that afternoon, they sat on the rooftop balcony, the one that used to feel like 2 separate worlds with one view. Zariah scrolled through her phone. Corbin read from a business magazine but barely turned the page. Then she asked, "What does intimacy mean to you now?" He put the magazine down. "Presence. The kind where nothing's missing." She raised an eyebrow. "Nothing?" "Nothing that matters." He looked at her, then added, "It used to mean moments. Now it means habits." Zariah considered that. "Go on." "It's not the kiss. It's that I'm close enough to notice when you need one." She blinked once, slowly. "When I don't, then I give you space, but I don't disappear." Zariah leaned back. They sat like that, No music, no distractions, for 15 minutes. Nothing urgent. No buzzing phones, just air. She broke the silence. I missed this version of us. Me too. She looked at him. But I'm not chasing what we had. I'm learning to trust what we build now. That's all I want, he said quietly. That night, they cooked together. Real intimacy began in the kitchen, not in whispers, not in bed, in garlic and oil. Shared counters. In passing the knife back without asking. Zariah sliced onions. Corbin stirred pasta. No music, no rush. At one point, her hand brushed his. She didn't pull away. He didn't freeze. Their eyes met. No sparks, but something warmer. Recognition. He leaned in. Slow, cautious. She let him. Their lips met, soft and brief. When they parted, she whispered, "That kiss isn't a promise. It's a check-in." Understood. After dinner, they curled up on the couch. Corbin pulled a blanket over them both. Zariah rested her head on his chest. It didn't feel like old love. It felt like new ground, built slow, with respect. Later, as they cleaned up, Zariah said, "You still journaling?" "Every day." "What do you write about?" "The man I want to be, and the man I'm not afraid to admit I used to be." She nodded. "That's intimacy." He stepped closer. "And you? What are you learning about love now?" Zariah didn't hesitate. That love isn't about staying. It's about showing up when leaving would be easier. Corbin took that in, like scripture. "I don't take your presence for granted." "Don't," she said, "because I carry myself in pieces. If you're not helping me stay whole, I leave. Then I'll help you stay whole." They didn't sleep in separate rooms that night, but they also didn't rush into anything physical. Zariah wore her sleep shirt. No pretense. Corbin turned off the light. No expectation. They lay side by side. No arms tangled. No bodies chasing warmth. Just quiet hearts, learning to rest again. And in that silence, something soft bloomed between them. A new kind of intimacy. The kind built on quiet knowing, not loud proving. There was no official date marked on the calendar. No. She moved back in post. No housewarming. No announcement. But little by little, Zariah's presence started to reroute itself in the penthouse. It wasn't the way it had been before. She didn't rush to fill drawers. She didn't fall into routines. She made space. And Corbin kept it safe. Monday mornings became their quiet ritual. He made coffee. She reviewed emails. No loud chatter. No kisses on the forehead. But there was comfort. A quiet rhythm. Sometimes, intimacy is not in the touch. It's in the awareness that someone's chair is pulled out for them before they sit. That evening, while Zariah prepped a light dinner, sautéed spinach, brown rice, and grilled lemon pepper tilapia, Corbin leaned against the counter watching her. He didn't speak for a full minute. Then, softly, "I've never seen someone carry calm the way you do." She didn't look up. "That calm cost me." He stepped forward. Carefully. "What did it cost you?" "Control," she said. "I stopped trying to manage outcomes and started focusing on protecting my peace, even if that meant protecting it from me." She finally met his eyes. Especially then. They sat at the table. A candle flickered between them. Not for romance, for softness. Halfway through the meal, Corbin set down his fork. "You know what scared me the most?" Zariah looked up. "That I would never earn your laugh back." She blinked. "Slowly. Not your presence, not even your love, your laugh. Because it's the only sound that ever made this place feel alive." Zariah's lips curved. "Then make sure I have reasons to laugh, not reasons to grieve in silence." "I will." After dinner, they curled up on the couch, the same spot where they once argued over vacation schedules. Now, they sat without agenda, feet tucked, shoulders touching. Corbin reached for the remote. "Movie or music?" "Neither," Zariah said. Let's just listen to the quiet. So they did. The hum of the city outside, the occasional honk, the sound of their breathing. Zariah laid her head on his chest. He adjusted, not to control her placement, but to match her comfort. Then she asked, "Did you ever think we'd get here again?" He was honest. "No, but I knew I'd still be trying even if we didn't." She let that sit, then whispered, "That's the only reason I let myself come back." Later, they washed the dishes together. He dried. She rinsed. She bumped him lightly with her hip. He laughed. "A real one." She smirked. "There it is." "What?" "That sound. You're starting to feel again. Because you're letting me." That night she crawled into bed first. Corbin followed, turning off the hallway light. He slid in beside her. She turned toward him, their faces inches apart in the dark. No hunger, no need to rush. Just that kind of closeness that doesn't beg. She ran her thumb gently across his cheek. "I'm still healing, I know, but I'm not holding the past like a weapon anymore." He exhaled. "Thank you." They kissed. Soft, unhurried, no claiming, just confirmation. When they pulled apart, she whispered, "You're learning how to love me without needing to prove anything." "Because love," he whispered back, "isn't what we say. It's what we preserve." And that night, there was no "I love you" exchanged. Just two steady hearts, learning that the real story wasn't about the return. It was about how they learned to stay. Peace always arrives in whispers, and just as quietly, life tests how long you'll hold it. Corbin had been asked to speak at the Metro Real Estate Roundtable, a quarterly industry forum where developers, architects, and public leaders gathered to discuss future projects. He hadn't spoken publicly since the last fallout. Zariah knew the invite would come. She also knew Amira now worked at the agency organizing the event. Over breakfast, Corbin slid the invitation letter across the table. "They want me to be the keynote." Zariah sipped her tea. "Are you going?" "Only if you're comfortable with it." "It's your career. It's our boundaries." She stared at him. "Is she involved?" "She's part of the planning team. That's all I know." Zariah didn't flinch. "If you go, I won't stop you. But I'll be watching who you are when no one's clapping." The day of the event came fast. Zariah didn't attend. She didn't ask to. Instead, she worked from Bellmark's office, glanced at the live stream. When it aired online, just long enough to see Corbin step on stage. He wore no ego. He didn't lead with titles. Instead, his opening line was, "Progress means nothing if you lose the people who trusted you to build it with care." It was clear. The message wasn't for the room. It was for the woman watching from a screen. After the panel, Corbin was approached by a small group of executives, and standing to the side, clipboard in hand, was Amira. She looked surprised to see him. He greeted her with a nod. She stepped forward. "Corbin, glad to see you again. It's Mr. Dane now." She blinked. "Right, of course. You'll coordinate with my assistant for all post-event follow-ups. We don't have to be formal. I mean, we were—" "Nothing," Corbin interrupted. "We were nothing." Her face tightened. He continued, low and even. "Let's be respectful to the room, and the boundaries I've set." He walked away. No smugness, no show, just clean lines. That night, Zariah was already at the penthouse when Corbin got home. She sat at the kitchen island, still dressed in work clothes, calm, observing. He walked in, loosened his tie. "Watch the stream," she said. "I saw the views spike." She studied him. "So, how was the test?" Corbin poured a glass of water, sat across from her. She was there. Zariah nodded once. "And?" "I didn't give her more than a full sentence." "And did you say anything about me?" He met her eyes. "No, because your name doesn't belong in explanations. It belongs in protection." Zariah sat back. "Good answer." She stood, walked around the counter, faced him fully. You did something important today. The panel? No, she said. You honored my absence by remembering my value. That night, for the first time since they separated, Zariah slept on her side of the bed. Not because she was testing it out, but because she was home. The next morning, the media buzzed. Corbin Dane's comeback speech stuns Metro Real Estate Forum. CEO Corbin Dane keeps it humble and honest in rare keynote. Is this the soft power shift we've been waiting for? Corbin didn't repost a single article, didn't issue a statement, didn't retweet praise. He just closed his laptop, sipped his coffee, and looked over at Zariah, who was seated across the table reviewing a Bellmark proposal. They're calling it a comeback, he said. Let them, Zariah replied, not looking up. We know what it really was. A redirect. She finally met his eyes. Exactly. They didn't need to talk about Amira. Corbin had handled it. With clarity, with dignity, with zero mess left for Zariah to clean up. That was new. And necessary. At therapy, Dr. Paris opened the session with a soft question. Do either of you have something to share before we begin? Zariah nodded. I watched him hold the line. Corbin looked surprised. She continued, I watched you respect me, not just in private, but publicly. Without needing applause. Corbin leaned forward slightly. That's how it should have always been. But it wasn't, she said. I know, and I accept that truth. Dr. Paris stepped in. So, Zariah, what changes in you when you feel protected, not because you asked for it, but because it's freely given? Zariah turned her body toward Corbin. I rest. He didn't blink. Then I'll keep building the life where you can. Later that evening, they skipped dinner, not because of stress, because they were full of peace, of clarity, of presence. They curled up on the couch. Corbin picked up his journal, handed it to Zariah. Can I read something to you? She nodded. He flipped to the most recent page. I used to think love was measured by what you do when you're being watched, but now I understand. Real love is what you do when no one's checking for credit. He looked up. That's you. You taught me that. Zariah closed her eyes. Let that truth settle in. A few days later, Corbin's assistant forwarded him a major media invitation. Couple feature, inside the quiet power of Zariah Bell and Corbin Dane photo shoot. Interview. Magazine cover. He didn't even consult Zariah. He declined. That night, over dinner, he mentioned it. Vogue wanted a full feature on us. She paused, mid-chew. Us? The comeback, the brand, the marriage, and I said no. She smiled, small but real. Why? Because what we have now is sacred, and sacred things don't need stage lights. She set down her fork. You're not just hearing me now. You're anticipating me. That's the difference, he said. Before, I loved you in theory. Now I'm learning to love you in fluency. The following Sunday, they visited Zariah's parents for dinner. It was the first time since the separation. Her mother opened the door and hugged her first, then looked at Corbin, held his face for a second. You look lighter. I am. Her father gave him a firm handshake. They sat around the table, passed bowls of collard greens and mac and cheese. Zariah's brother cracked jokes. Her cousin asked if Corbin had learned how to cook for real yet. Zariah leaned over and said, He's a work in progress. Everyone laughed, but her hand rested on his thigh under the table. A silent sign. You're okay here. I see you. Later that night, back home, Corbin stood by the bedroom window looking out at the skyline. Zariah wrapped her arms around his waist from behind. He spoke first. I keep wondering when you'll leave again. She tightened her hold. Then maybe the next vow we write should be about staying. He turned to face her. You want to write new vows? Not for a ceremony. For us. Right now? Right now. She walked to the nightstand, pulled out a notebook, tore a sheet, handed him a pen. They wrote, separately, quietly, then exchanged. Corbin's vow. I vow to keep listening, even when I'm tired. I vow to show up, even when it's not easy. I vow to protect your joy like it's part of my own body. Zariah's vow. I vow to let you love me, even when my instinct says run. I vow to speak truth when silence feels safer. I vow to never let us become strangers in the name of survival. They didn't cry. They folded the notes, placed them in a small box on the dresser. Corbin kissed her forehead. Zariah whispered, "Now, let's live those quietly." The days that followed felt quieter, not because life slowed down, but because the noise between them was gone. Zariah no longer tiptoed around Corbin's mood. Corbin no longer mistook silence for safety. Their home had shifted, not with dramatic gestures, but with small, consistent proof. Every morning she made her own tea, not because he didn't offer, but because he didn't insist. And when he brought her a fresh mug anyway, almond milk, 1 teaspoon of honey, never stirred too hard, she smiled, accepted, and sat beside him. They didn't talk much in the mornings. They didn't need to. One Saturday, Zariah walked into the kitchen to see Corbin carefully placing her new line sheets into protective sleeves. Her brand, Bellmark Home, was preparing for its first nationwide retail partnership, and she had a final review before the buyers' meeting. "You laminated these?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "You said you wanted them crisp." "Not a wrinkle in sight," he replied, not looking up. Zariah shook her head, but her eyes softened. No spotlight, no announcement, just quiet backup. When she sat for the Zoom call later that day, Corbin didn't hover. He only mouthed, "You got this," from across the room, then gave her space. That was new too. Love that didn't overstep. On a crisp afternoon, Zariah visited her old neighborhood in East Point. It had been a while since she walked those sidewalks, cracked and crooked, but filled with memory. The local corner store owner, Mr. Glenn, was still behind the register. "Zariah Bell? Look at you, girl," he said, eyes wide with surprise. "Didn't think success folks came back through here. I needed to remember where I started." She bought 2 bottles of peach soda, just like she used to. Gave him one before leaving. Outside, a young girl walked by with a sketch pad tucked under her arm. Zariah paused. "You like to draw?" she asked. The girl nodded. "Houses, interiors." Zariah crouched down. "Keep going. Even if no one claps. Especially then." The girl blinked, then nodded again, firmer this time. That moment lingered with Zariah the entire ride home. Success felt different now. Not as a trophy, but as a tool. That evening, Corbin cooked. Not pasta, not takeout. A full meal. Lemon pepper salmon, brown rice, steamed asparagus. No burnt corners. No shortcuts. Zariah walked in and blinked. "You use the good olive oil?" "The one you hide behind the flour," he replied casually. "Wow, you have changed." They ate slowly. Halfway through the meal, Corbin said, "I want us to pick a day." "For what?" "A day. Every month. No meetings, no screens. Just us." Zariah looked at him. "You sure?" "I'm building this business for legacy. And you are the legacy." She reached across the table, held his hand. That one line stayed with her. He didn't say you're part of the legacy. He said you are the legacy. Weeks passed. One night, Zariah received an invitation from a women's entrepreneurship group, a closed-door retreat in Savannah. 3 nights, no spouses. She was hesitant, not because Corbin would mind, but because she felt uncertain. Corbin saw the email open on her tablet. Read her expression. "You should go," he said. She tilted her head. "It's far. You'd be here alone. I've had you at your worst. I can handle 3 days of your best taking a break." She laughed. "That's not even a smooth line. Didn't need to be. Just true." So she packed, boarded the train with her name not as Mrs. Dane, but as Zariah Bell, founder. When she returned, Corbin picked her up himself. No assistant, no driver. He stood at the station with flowers and a small handwritten note. Every mile away from you reminds me how much better life is with you in it. She didn't say anything, just kissed him, slow and deep, right there on the sidewalk. One morning, Corbin walked into the living room and froze. Zariah was asleep on the couch, laptop open, fabric swatches scattered on the coffee table. She'd been up late planning her fall line, but what made him stop wasn't the mess. It was her, completely at rest, peaceful, unguarded. She trusted the space enough to fall asleep in it. That had once been impossible. He gently picked up her laptop, closed it, and draped a blanket over her shoulders. Paused for a second, then leaned down and whispered, "You're home now." That Sunday, Corbin took her out of town. He didn't say where, just told her to pack light and trust him. They drove up into the Georgia mountains, found a quiet Airbnb with a wraparound porch and a fire pit. The first night, they said nothing. Just lay beneath a shared blanket, watching the sky change colors. "I used to think healing had to be loud," Corbin said, "but this is the quiet I never knew I needed." Zariah curled against him. Loud healing gets attention. Quiet healing gets results. They didn't talk about the past, didn't recount Amira, didn't relive the betrayal. They were too busy living what came after. Back in Atlanta, Zariah met with a group of young interns she had mentored through Bellmark's outreach program. One asked, "How do you know if someone's really changed?" She answered without thinking, "When the apology stops needing words and starts showing up in how they live." Corbin, meanwhile, had quietly rewritten parts of the Northcrest Employee Handbook, introduced parental leave for all genders, added a scholarship fund for employees' children. He didn't announce it, but Zariah found the updated draft one morning on the kitchen island with a sticky note that read, "I don't want to build empires that cost people their lives to keep up." She folded the paper, placed it in her journal. One evening, Corbin found Zariah in her studio crying. He panicked. "What happened? Are you okay?" She nodded. I remembered how alone I used to feel in this same room." Corbin stepped closer. She reached for him. "But now, even when you're not here, I don't feel alone anymore." He held her. "I can't erase the past, Zariah, but I'll never stop writing the kind of present where you feel seen." Their love was no longer loud. It was layered, lived, earned, kept, and for the first time, Zariah believed it wouldn't fall apart if no one was watching. Because real love wasn't a performance. It was presence. And now, they had plenty of that. The soft buzz of the espresso machine filled the early morning stillness. Corbin leaned against the kitchen counter in his robe, watching the steam curl from 2 cups. Zariah walked in, her bonnet still on, her steps slow. No rush, no pretense. He handed her a cup. "Same way?" She took it, sipped, and smiled. "Almost perfect." "Almost? You forgot the cinnamon." He smirked. "I was hoping you'd come over here and add it yourself." Zariah rolled her eyes, stepped in close, and reached for the spice rack. Corbin didn't move. Her arm brushed his chest. They stood like that for a second too long. "You still do that on purpose," she murmured. He didn't deny it. Later that week, she received a call from Corbin's assistant, Nina. "There's a package for you at the office. Mr. Dane said to personally deliver it, but he's tied up in back-to-back meetings." Zariah wasn't expecting anything. Still, she made her way to Northcrest Tower that afternoon. The receptionist gave her a long white box, clean ribbon, handwritten note. She opened it in the car. Inside, a silk blazer in her signature brand shade. Custom-stitched initials on the cuff, ZB. The card read, "Not a gift, a reminder. You deserve to wear power like it fits you." C. She didn't call, didn't text. But that night, Corbin came home to her wearing it. Heels on, dinner made, wine poured. He froze in the doorway. She tilted her head. "You gonna stand there or join me?" He locked the door behind him without a word. The next few days felt like a rhythm only the two of them could hear. She worked late into the night on her product samples. He took early morning calls, but always brought her breakfast if she was still asleep. Sometimes they spoke in full sentences, sometimes in looks. One afternoon, Amira's name came up again, but this time from Zariah. "Do you ever talk to her?" "No." "We agreed it was done after she left." Zariah nodded. "I don't need to know the details. I only care that she's never given a place to rewrite our present." Corbin reached across the table and touched her hand. "She never will." Zariah's mother visited for the weekend. She'd been skeptical of Corbin since the scandal. But when she saw them now, not perfect, but balanced, she softened. That Sunday evening, while Zariah folded laundry, her mother pulled Corbin aside. "You're not the man I met 2 years ago," she said, watching him. "I know. And you're not the man who hurt my daughter. I won't ever be again." She paused. "Then we're okay." It was the closest thing to a blessing she had ever given him. Corbin planned something small for Zariah's birthday. Not a lavish dinner. No photographers, no speeches. Instead, he took her back to the cabin in the mountains. They sat by the fire, both in oversized sweaters. She unwrapped a photo frame, a collage of all the notes they had written to each other during therapy. "I scanned every one," he said. "Even the one where you said you'd leave me if I ever used silence as punishment again." Zariah's eyes filled. "You remembered that?" "I remember everything that almost cost me you." She kissed him then, deeply, slowly, like the first time, but with all the weight of what they'd survived. That fall, Bellmark launched its first national campaign. Billboards, commercials, a podcast appearance. Zariah's face was everywhere. At one event, a woman approached her and whispered, "Thank you for making me believe I don't have to shrink just to be loved." Zariah didn't respond with words. She hugged her, long and tight, because she knew exactly what that felt like. Back home, Corbin built something new in the backyard. Not a pool, not a patio. A greenhouse. One night, she walked out and found him planting lavender. "You always said it calms you." He shrugged. She laughed. "You remembered that too. I'm not just trying to be forgiven anymore. I'm learning who you are." She stepped into the greenhouse. It wasn't finished, but it didn't need to be. Just like them. One morning she watched him make coffee. Same man, same kitchen. But everything was different. Not because the scars vanished, but because they both stopped hiding them, and that made all the difference. Months passed. Zariah stood in front of a mirror, adjusting a pair of gold earrings. Corbin walked in behind her, already dressed for the gala. This time, her foundation was being honored. "You nervous?" he asked. She turned, ready to reply, then paused. "You look proud." "I am proud." They held each other's gaze for a long time. She stepped closer. "You remember what you said the night I walked in a day early?" He tensed. "Which part?" "You said you didn't know who you were without control." Corbin nodded slowly. She smiled. "And now?" He held her gaze. "Now I know love doesn't weaken control. It makes it unnecessary." Zariah touched his face. "Then we're ready." They walked into that gala as partners, not just in business, but in life. For real this time. And when the cameras flashed and people whispered and the music played, Zariah leaned into Corbin and whispered in his ear, "Thank you for showing up. Not just for me, but for yourself too." He smiled, because he finally understood. Love wasn't something to earn once. It was something to earn daily. And Zariah? She was worth every day of that effort. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to believe in second chances. Tell us, which moment in their journey hit you the hardest? Like, comment, and subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories for more love that heals, not hurts.